All right, so the question was, what is the wrinkled outermost portion of the brain called? And the answer is not what? It's not the reticular formation, because the reticular formation, if you remember, is that little red thing that was on this slide right there. Okay, right here. That's the reticular formation. It is also not the what? Hypothalamus, right? Part of the forebrain that regulates the amount of fear, thirst, sexual drive, and aggression that we feel. So that leaves us two answers. One is correct, one is not. So it is also not what? Not the hypothalamus, right? It's not the reticular formation. It is not what? How do you say it? The amygdala. The amygdala. Yep. Amygdala is our fear response. It's responsible for telling us to be afraid. Just in front of that jawline, so it's technically the forebrain, influence, motivation, emotional control, fear response, interpretations of non-verbal emotional expression. Pretty awesome. So the correct answer is the cortex. Pretty fancy, huh? Anybody who's watching this video at home right now, so I can fun of me because they know I can't hear them, just know I'm reading your thoughts. So. Yeah, the cortex, the outer covering, covers the cerebrum. It consists of a really tightly packed layer of neurons, about 1/10 of an inch thick. Basically, what you need to think about the cortex as is a sausage case. Pretty much what it is, right? Your brain is a big old blend of stuff, a bunch of neurons, a bunch of other stuff, and the cortex is what holds it all and keeps it all tight in your brain, right? If the cortex gets pierced, you start losing neurons, and that's a huge, huge problem, okay? If you bust the casing on a sausage before it's cooked, huge problem, right? Anybody cook? You know what I'm talking about, I think, right? For those of you that don't know, if you pierce the casing on a sausage, even a little bit, it splits wide open and everything just spills out. You have no actual sausage. You gotta chop it up and do something else. It can't happen, whatever you were trying to do. Right? Same thing with the brain. You bust this open, you bust the cortex, your brain is gonna start spilling out. Yes. Very ouch. Yes. That is the correct response, Luke. Good job. All right. So page 60, this is directly from your book, Mentor Elmhorst. I always like that last name. Elmhorst. Right? It reminds me of an old man named Elmer who married some awful, awful person. Right? Just the worst person ever. Get it? God, I love mornings. All right, the cortex is divided into two sections. I will, from now on until the end of time, call them the hemispheres. But technically, they are called the cerebral hemispheres. All right, cerebral hemispheres. That's because they are part of the cerebellum, and they're made up into hemispheres. But we'll just call them hemispheres. They're connected by a thick, tough band of neural fibers, axons. Okay. Place we send information. Called the corpus callosum. Corpus callosum allows the left and right hemispheres to communicate with each other. Right? Anybody know anyone that has epilepsy? Okay. Have either of them had the corpus callosum treatment for epilepsy that you know of? No idea? Galen? No idea? So basically, does anybody want to give us like a brief explanation of what it is, what epilepsy is? It is seizures. Seizures are the biggest part of epilepsy, EPILEPS, why. So I'll read it to you from the actual clinical definition of what epilepsy is. It's basically a seizure disorder. It's characterized by unpredictable seizures that can cause other health problems. It is a spectrum condition with a wide range of seizure types, control varying from person to person. There's a large public misunderstanding of epilepsy and the cause of it that can be worse than the condition itself. The hallmark of epilepsy is unprovoked seizures. A person is diagnosed with epilepsy when they have two unprovoked seizures that were not caused by some known or reversible medical condition like alcohol withdrawal or extremely low blood sugar. Seizures in epilepsy might be related to brain injury or family tendency, but often the cause is completely unknown. The word epilepsy does not indicate anything about the cause of the person's seizure or their severity. Many people with epilepsy have more than one type of seizure and have other symptoms of neurological problems as well. Some EEGs, we talked about, right? Family history and outlook are similar among a group of people with epilepsy. In these situations, their condition can be defined as epilepsy syndrome. All right, so here's the issue. The issue lies with the corpus callosum, the communication with the left and right hemispheres, right? So if the brain receives too much input and it's trying to transfer that information, right, from your left eye back to your right side occipital lobe, that information passes through your brain, through the corpus callosum, and down into the bottom right-hand portion of your occipital, right? So if something serious happens, you get hit hard right here, you may not see out of your left eye for a while. It'll come back, right? But it's total opposite. Right side of the occipital lobe is the left eye. Right? You take your head. All right. So what happens is sometimes in order to help a person who have epilepsy, it will cut the corpus callosum. Right? I know we talked about this a little bit before. But basically what that does is it gets rid of the brain's way to communicate with the left and right hemispheres. People who have had this treatment usually don't have seizures anymore, but they also might have to learn how to walk again. Because their left hemisphere and right hemisphere communicating are what allow you to move your feet, right? Your right hemisphere sends a message to your left side and says, take a step. Your left hemisphere sends a message to your right side and says, take a step. If they don't have that axon, those bundles of neurons to send those messages, your brain's got to figure out another way to do it. Right? So there are other places, the reticular formation being the main place that kind of picks up the slack cadence, right? It's pretty serious, but it does help. It is proven to be effective. All right. So what are those parts of the brain? Now you look at this image here, and you're probably telling me there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 portions of the brain. There are only. Both the left and right hemispheres can be roughly divided into 4 sections. I guess technically there are 7 up there, but 4 sections really. All right. The frontal lobe contains the motor cortex. The frontal lobe is the yellow portion up there. All right. So yellow is the frontal lobe. Motor cortex, it controls voluntary muscles, so your ability to do things on your terms, not something like you're reacting. And also where the higher mental functions occur, such as your ability to plan something, the language that you know, right? Or any languages that you know, and complex decision making, right? So the frontal lobe in an adolescent brain, so we're talking a teenager, is usually underdeveloped, which means it's still developing. Which is why it's such a crucial time for you to go to school. Everybody said, why do I have to go to school? Because you literally struggle learning anything later in life. Because when you're young, during your adolescence, your frontal lobe is still developing. It allows you to retain information more long-term. Better to learn when you're young, right? It's just a fact of what it is. So that's also why teenagers proportionally are at higher risk take risky behaviors, like start drugs, or drink and drive, or get in car accidents, right? Don't be one of those statistics, but those are facts. If you're a teenager, proportionally speaking, you're more likely to do those behaviors. And it's because your frontal lobe hasn't fully developed yet. All right? The occipital lobe at the back and base of each hemisphere process vision and contain the primary visual cortex. Occipital lobe, this green portion. All right? So the part of your brain that sees, interprets, and gives you information that you need on sight is pretty much as far away from the eye as possible. Right? Now, some of you are probably asking why. Right? If this brain was intelligently designed, or even if it wasn't intelligently designed, why was the occipital lobe not put directly behind the eye so that we can see information as quickly as possible? The answer is you recognizing that you saw something isn't as important as your ability to avoid something. So what I mean by that is, by the time you see something, other parts of your body have already started. So the message that's being carried on the eye through those axons back to the occipital lobe is passing through your central nervous system. It's passing through your peripheral nervous system. It's increasing your adrenaline and your heart rate, giving you what you need to react to what you saw. So it's actually a good thing that it's back here, because the rest of your body has had a chance to send you whatever hormones you need, right, in order to react to what you're eventually going to interpret. That's also why if you see something very quickly, you want to try and look back. Your brain didn't get enough input to figure out what it needs to do, right? So very good design here with the occipital lobe near the back. The parietal lobes, right? They're at the top and the back of the cortex. So parietal lobes, talking here. Red. Parietal, P-E-R-I-E-T-A. P-A, it's P-A. It's P-A-I-E-T-A. They contain the somatosensory area, which is responsible for our sense of touch and temperature and body position. Taste is also processed. Right? So how many of you have ever heard, I've got a lot more taste buds on my tongue than you do? Okay? It is what it is. You might have one more. You might have 100 more. But even if you have less, sense of taste occurs in this brain. Why? Because tasting things is mainly just smelling them through your mouth. Sounds super weird, right? How many of you have ever smelled something that says, oh, it smells so good, right? It's because your brain is connecting the delicious smell of whatever you're smelling with the fact that you've had things that have smelled similar in the past that have tasted good. Right? So when you get something and it goes into your mouth, you have your sinus cavity. The sinus cavity connects your ears, your nose, and your throat, right? It's why when you eat spicy food, it can clear your sinuses out, right? It can sort of drain from your ear into your sinus cavity, out through your nostrils, right? You'd be blowing your nose all day, but you'd be able to breathe through your nose. Same kind of thing. It goes in your mouth, but the actual flavor of it travels through the sinus cavity, right? Goes into that nose, sends messages to the parietal lobe, we taste our food. All right? Temporal lobes. These are the part, they sort of start on your temple. Temporal lobes start at your temple, right? And then they go backwards, just behind your ear, into the hindbrain, just above cerebral cortex, that reticular formation there at the base of the spine. All right? It stops near the part of your brain where your brain sort of juts out from your spine, right there, and then the occipital lobe sort of takes over that back portion. Right? So right about here, and then where your, so this would be your neck, this would be your brain. So right about where your neck comes up, so anywhere it may be, that's where the occipital lobe sort of takes over there. All right? So, 4 lobes of the brain. Again, the yellow being the frontal lobe, the green being the occipital lobe, the pink, blue, and red being the parietal lobes, and the temporal lobes being down near the ears. Mainly responsible for hearing, interpreting auditory information, but it's also involved in understanding language. All right? So here's why. Have you ever heard of people who can understand a language but can't speak it? You know why that is, and why that's a totally understandable psychological thing. Orange portion understands language. Yellow portion speaks it. You ever heard somebody say you can't speak and talk at the same time, or you can't listen and talk at the same time? Pretty true. Because one part of your brain needs to be active for the other to happen. So if you're speaking your language, you need to utilize your frontal lobe, which means more blood is going to be pumped to the frontal lobe in order for you to speak your information, right, and make complex decisions. If you're listening, your temporal lobe will get more blood flowing. You'll be able to take in more information. Pretty crazy, right? And you thought it was just your parents being ridiculous. It is. It's difficult, right? And even if you can hear things while you're talking, you're only understanding them at a very skimmed surface level. Right? There's no deep understanding. All right. So here are the portions here as they pop up. Hold on a second. Okay, so that frontal pink portion is a frontal lobe. Not that it matters to you now, right? It's thinking and then hearing, right? Temporal lobe is pretty easy. It's near the ear, so ear, right? Occipital lobe is the one that's sort of weird. It's all the way at the back of the brain. Frontal lobe, complex decision making, personality things, language, planning. Parietal lobe is your movement. What are you doing? All right? Cool. Was anybody looking at that? Huh? Your parietal is your sense of touch. It is movement. Like, you move because you have a sense of touch. Does that make sense? So, like, I know to move my next leg when this leg makes contact with the floor, right? Or I know to, if I close my eyes and I start writing, eventually this is going to start looking weird. I don't know if it's looking weird or not yet, or if you can read at all what I'm writing. That doesn't look too bad, right? But that looks more like a J than an I, right? An I should look like this, right? But if I were to write this with my eyes looking at it, easier to understand, right? So what was happening here, and this why this does look absolutely insane, is because my parietal lobe was activating on my sense of touch with the board. It was letting me know when I need to write the next letter, even though I don't have a visual connection. Does that make sense? I even spelled weird wrong when I had my eyes closed. Anybody else notice that? Funny how your brain works. All right, so this is one of my favorite graphics because it's so freaking weird. All right, so do you see what's going on the side there? All right, I may post this on Classroom just for you to have, right? But basically, there are two portions of every piece that we talk about. There are two frontal lobes, there are two parietal lobes, there are two temporal lobes, there are two occipital lobes. Because have a half of it on each hemisphere. So your frontal lobe is split into the left and right hemisphere. Occipital lobe is split into the left and right hemisphere. All right? This sort of explains what's going on with your brain. Right? So, if you look at this, think about it like you're looking through the back of the brain. So this is your left hemisphere. All right? So we start from the top here, and kind of work our way down. All right? So what's going on here? Well, talking about the motor cortex specifically, right? So that's these portions of it. Make sense? So that's why they're different colors. So the motor cortex is the most rear portion of the frontal lobe. The somatosensory cortex is the most front portion of the parietal lobe. All right? That's what they do. Those things that are listed there. Okay? So if you remember correctly, the motor cortex is your voluntary muscles, your, hey, there's a desk here, I need to stop walking and step over in the aisleway, and then I can continue walking type of response. Okay? Cells at the very top of the motor cortex control muscles at the very bottom of the body. Super weird, right? Super weird. I think it's super weird. So, very top here, we have toes, genitals, hip, knee, leg, hip here as well, trunk. Works its way, right? Pretty weird. Yeah. Because again, it's backwards. Think that the top of the brain would work at the very top, right? Bottom would work at the very bottom. But in all reality, the closest things to the brain, like tongue and swallowing, even your jaw and lips, and your face control, is almost at the very bottom of that motor cortex, the somatosensory cortex as well. All right? Cells, excuse me, body parts are drawn larger and smaller according to the number of cortical cells devoted. So basically what that means is the amount of neurons that it takes to make that part of your body work are directly proportional to the size. So why do you think we want to touch things with our hands versus our feet? How big is the hand compared to the foot? Huge, right? So what that means is we have more neurons, the ability to better discern what a thing is with our hands than we do our feet. That's why we don't rely on our feet as human beings. Because they don't have a lot of neural response. They don't have a lot of neural activity, right? So we usually rely on our hands to do things, which is why it's a huge portion, all right? So there are as many axons in your hands as there are in your face, your whole face. Crazy, right? You can take in so much more information using your hands than by using your face. Pretty crazy. Now we are talking about touch of the face. We're not talking about using your eyes to smell, because those parts literally have their own parts of the brain, right? Your eyes literally use the occipital lobe to see what's going on. Your ears use the temporal lobe to hear, like, as far as touch goes. Yeah. Tongue is here as well, but the tongue just sends that response to the parietal lobe so that we can taste our food, right? So the hand has very small muscles and requires a larger area of cortical cells to control it, right? So technically what's happening, do they have more neurons? Absolutely, right? But the reason they have more neurons is partially because there are a lot of tiny muscles in your hand. Right? You taking that? Yeah. Okay, the muscles in the hand are incredible, but there are a ton of bones in your hand too, like a crazy amount of bones in your hand as well. Right? So we need to have as much information to make each muscle do what we want it to do, to make each bone move along with our tendons and our ligaments, and to also know when to stop moving because we don't want to hurt ourselves because we need our hands to do things, right? My wife says these are the money makers, right? If you don't have hands, you do have a difficult time doing some things. Right? Having one hand, you're probably going to be okay. Having no hands, it's very difficult to do a lot of things, right? Very difficult. Somatosensory cortex, located in the parietal lobe. So remember, it's that very front part of the parietal lobe. Just behind the motor cortex, is organized in much the same manner and receives information about the sense of touch in each body position. This one. Okay. So the touch going down here, all the way down, right? even your intra-abdominal. This sort of falls under your parietal nervous system as well, right? Because if your body has a high acidity, you're going to release something to neutralize it, right? If it has high alkaline, you'll release more acidity. Very easy. All right, so association areas of the cortex. All right, they're found everywhere, but frontal lobe is the big one. All right, frontal lobe is the big one, right? All right, so let's look at what's up here on the board. Like areas within each lobe of the cortex responsible for coordination and interpretation of information, as well as higher mental processing. All right. Basically, these areas help people make sense of information they receive. So the association areas of the cortex help you figure out what is coming back to you, right? So how many of you have ever like expected another step and there wasn't one? It freaked you out, right? Your foot still hit at the same time it would if walking on a flat area, but your brain was expecting different input, right? This was an association area that was expecting you to step and you didn't. Yeah. Oh, it can. Your brain will basically be like, wake up, you need to save me. You need to shove your hands out and catch yourself. Do not let me get hurt. Right? Yeah, it'll wake up. It's the same thing like dreaming like you're falling will wake you up. Like if you dream that you're falling off the end of the bed, but you don't actually fall off the end of the bed, you'll snap awake really quickly. Your body, your peripheral nervous system's firing adrenaline into your body so that you can wake up and save yourself. Right? It's pretty crazy. Dreams are pretty incredible. One fun fact about dreams in your brain in general is you cannot create new faces. Your brain cannot think up a face that it's never seen before. So every face you've ever seen in any dream you've ever had, you've seen in real life at some point. How do they know that for a fact?
Are we gonna learn?
Yes, we are going to learn. How do they know that for a fact? Because they've asked people, okay, draw a new face, a face you've never seen that's realistic. And they have always found somebody associated with that person's life in some way that has that face. Or they've associated certain characteristics, like they'll take somebody's eye shape with somebody else's jawline, with somebody else's head, right? But you'll still be able to tell the identity. Sort of like when your friend wears a hat and glasses, it's harder to see who they are immediately, but you'll figure it out, right? But the main reason is because we know the brain can't generate new information. It can only take in existing information, right? Abstract thought is just thought about things that don't exist, but that theoretically can be represented with material, right? Meaning, what's the surface area of a swimming pool that's shaped like a diamond? Could we figure it out? Sure, absolutely. How many of you know how to figure it out, right? And why would a swimming pool ever be shaped like a diamond? It wouldn't be. That's stupid, right? That's dumb. So we can think about things abstractly, but we can also see them. Like you can see a swimming pool shaped like a diamond, right? Theoretically, if I were to get out here and draw this diamond-shaped swimming pool, right? All of a sudden we fill it with water to right here so that we can kill a bunch of people in this deep area right here. I can still figure out how much water this area can hold, even though there's no reason for this to exist in any way, shape, or form, right? Except it's a death trap, right? And if any of you are sociopaths, I can show you this, okay? So the abstract portion of your brain can understand this and see this and give it examples, but only because you know what a swimming pool should look like. Only because you know what a diamond looks like, right? And only if you knew how to do calculus, which is how you calculate the surface area of three-dimensional objects, right? But yeah. Region called the Broca's area is in the left frontal, right here. How many of you get headaches right here when you're at school? You're just like pushing right here in your brain, right? Temporal as well. We're going to talk about that in a second. Anybody get headaches on the front? I get headaches on the front. I hate it, right? I want to put pressure right here on my nose, right? It feels good. You know why? Because this part of your brain, or this part of your brain, is activating. And it doesn't have enough hydration, basically. It's not getting enough blood. That's because your body is sending blood to other places, right? So how many of you find it very difficult to pay attention after lunch? You eat lunch and you're like, oh my God, I can't listen to another word, right? But then by 8th period, you're okay. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yes or no? Be honest. I was like that. Macy's with me. Mari, you know what I'm talking about? After lunch, I'm done for now. Like, I can't do it. Right? That's why I never eat a lunch that fills me up here. Can't. I would be done. I would want to take a nap. Eat it. That's why I don't go to the Jaguar room. Any of you, but all of you had me in the afternoon last year. I don't think any of you had the 7th period. I don't think you had. When I have lunch at the Jaguar room, I'm so very full. The reason is the body is saying you can digest this food, so it's sending blood down to my digestive system. It's digesting my food, but I still need to use my frontal lobe to make my decisions, right? Or my temporal lobe, maybe, when I'm hearing new information for the first time. So for me, it makes sense that mine's frontal because I'm making decisions and giving you information, and I'm speaking front part of the brain. You are trying to take in new information and listening. Temporal, right? Well, it makes perfect sense that your pain is there and my pain is here. It's because your body is focusing on providing blood other places, like growing. You got to send blood to your body in order to grow. You got to send blood to your digestive system so you can digest your food, right? Because your body's saying, I need this food to survive, so digest. Okay, that's done. 8th period comes around, bang, all of a sudden your headache's gone and you're able to listen. Huh? And it doesn't necessarily have to be food. It also could be other things. Like if you're in your parietal lobe and you're accessing information, or if you're in your frontal lobe making decisions about other things that are going on in your life, that can also create pain. Right?
Not like the sun.
The sun what?
Like being outside.
Yeah. So basically your body, your outer layers of dermis, are ingesting vitamin D. That vitamin D is being put to use in your body, but your brain has to expend. That's why, like, when you're out in the sun, you're like, oh my God, I'm exhausted. But your body has been turning vitamin D from the sun's rays in through your dermis into the rest of your body, providing you with the vitamin D that you need to survive. But that expends energy. It's the same reason why you're so tired when you drive, right? You drive for 3 hours, you're exhausted, right? It's because your frontal lobe's been on overdrive. You've had to make 1,000 little decisions every minute. Makes total sense, right? That's why we should have a 30-minute nap time after lunch. Because if you sleep, your body can focus all of its resources on digesting your food. Ready to go? I think we'd be more productive. 30-minute lunch, 30-minute nap. But that's just me. All right. Broca's area, left frontal lobe, responsible for producing fluent, understandable speech. So anybody ever had someone who's taken a blow to the front of the head, like a concussion or something, that they sort of slur their speech a little bit? Frontal lobe is responsible for that. All right, the frontal lobe, where Broca's area, is responsible for that. If damaged, the person has Broca's aphasia, in which words will be halting and pronounced incorrectly, right? So this would be a, you can't say it. You know what it is, but you can't say it. And it's not that you don't want to say it, it's that you literally can't. You can't say what this is supposed to be. Or you would call this is a pen. This is a highlighter. This is a whatever, right? You just can't name it. You can call it something else. You can mispronounce it too. Like this would be a maker. This is a maker. And all of you would say, well, it's a marker. I would say, I'm saying marker. I'm actually saying maker. Because the brain can't do it. Can't. If you have damage to the Broca's area in the frontal lobe. All right. Another area called Wernicke's is in the left temporal lobe, left ear. Did you get them right here? Okay. It is responsible for understanding language. So if you're listening a lot, very commonplace headache. If damaged, the person has word mix aphasia, in which speech is fluent but nonsensical. The wrong words are used. Right? So you could say, I was flying a dog and I crashed my sock. Right? And that to that person who's saying that would make total sense. To you, you're like, that's totally ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Right? But they could have said, I was walking my dog and I tripped over the curb. That could have been what they were trying to say. Right? They could have been trying to say any of those things. But their brain literally is damaged and can't. All right? Spatial neglect is another one. It comes from damage to the association areas on one side of the cortex, usually the right side. A person with this condition will ignore information from the opposite side of the body or the opposite vision field. So, for example, if you cover this side of your body and you show an image with your left eye and say, draw this with your left hand, if you have this condition, you would say, draw what? Because your right eye is what sends information to your left hand, right? And if your right eye is covered, it can't send a signal to your left hand. But what's funny, you could be drawing it with the right hand. Does that make sense? Your left eye is taking in the information. You're saying draw it with your left eye, and you're like, draw what? And your right arm will literally draw what you're seeing. Pretty crazy. Right? Because it usually affects your right side, which is your left side of your body. Okay? Pretty cool. All right. I think this is the last thing on this chapter. Corpus callosum sometimes reversed to reduce seizures. This is kind of what we were talking about. Left visual field is right hemisphere. Right visual field is the left hemisphere. Studies with a split brain patient in which the corpus callosum has been severed to correct epilepsy reveal the left side of the brain seeks to control language, writing, and logical thought, analysis, mathematical abilities. That is basically saying right-handed people, for the most part, have more logic. They think more with their brains. They're able to figure out problems and solutions. Whereas the left side, the right side of the brain processes information globally. They think about huge, major issues. It controls emotion and spatial perception, so where you are standing, where you're sitting, recognition of faces, patterns, melodies, and emotions. So left-handed people are more likely to be musicians, to be artists, and to also participate in protests that they think have some sort of global impact. I know that's weird, right? But for the most part, left-handed people are right brain dominant, right-handed people are left brain dominant. However, there are people who are right brain dominant and right-handed, but those people are usually very unathletic, very uncoordinated. Right? Very uncommon thing to see. All right? So, all right? And then there's what hemispheres are responsible for. Left hemisphere controls right hand, spoken language, written language. All those things we just talked about. Right hemisphere controls the left. Visual, spatial perception, music, artistic processing. Processes this whole pattern recognition. So usually left-handed people are employed by the FBI to recognize patterns of serial killers. Pretty awesome. Again, back to the diamond-shaped thing. Sociopaths. I didn't tell you about that. Okay. Just want that to be clear. All right. So I believe that is the end of Module 5. It is. Awesome.